Say, go on film and tour? What? Tweedledee? Oh, the mic closer? Can't get closer, can you? Okay, Segon Phil Montour from Six Nations, of course, part of the research office and member of the CAP team, Consultation and Accommodation Policy of the Elective Council. What we have here tonight is an opportunity, and I want to say thank you for Rod. Can't hear me? Yeah. I don't know. I'm getting instructions here. Anyways, so we're a member of the CAP team, and we have an opportunity down in Toronto. I guess one of the challenges we're faced with in the area of Toronto, although it's within our treaty lands, the Fort Albany-Nan-Fam treaty lands. In Toronto, for some reason, with what's been going on, it's almost like we don't exist. So we've been asserting our rights and issues on talking with developers throughout those areas, and we have an opportunity to actually they'll get into finer details, but to have a cultural or information center established in one of the developments that are going on. It's about 3,500 square feet, and it's an opportunity for Six Nations to have their interests, be it promoting the Six Nations Reserve, tourism, or the work of the survivors, educating people, educating the newcomers that come into our territory. They know nothing about us. But what's very important is that we actually educate them on the Six Nations. And it's a matter of, here's where we are, come to us, come visit Six Nations, be it linked up with tourism. The real short end of this is we have an opportunity to have a space, about 3,500 square feet, all costs related to, it's to be part of a condominium development. All costs will be picked up by the developer for 3 years. So it'll give us a 3-year term to actually promote Six Nations and see how it goes. And after that 3 years, if we decide to maintain and continue on, we can do that, or we can sell our interest in that and as part of the accommodation for working with the developer to try and make this happen. But what the key part of this is, we have a right to be there. We got to educate Toronto overall, our interest in the Toronto area. You know, our neighbors have been promoting that New Credit owns everything, which is falsehood. You know, they basically surrendered all their interests. Toronto themselves, they've got to be re-educated. So this is an opportunity for us to come forward. And it's, you know, like I said, it can be tourism, it can be basically updates on our litigation that's going to be going on during that time period. We've got a lot of information that we can teach on any occasion that we want to bring forward, be it even putting on special occasion Six Nations with handicrafters or what have you at that time. So it's kind of wide open what we can do with that 3,500 square feet based on the principle of a cultural center. So that's how we'll go forward with it. So the finer details, it's a great opportunity for us to educate the non-native population, politicians, developers, and the newcomers in Toronto. So that's kind of the gist behind this. I'll just leave it at that, and I think they'll get into the finer details on really what the development is. So I'll leave that with Taylor. Taylor, or?
Hey, my name's Dalen G. I'm a land use technician at the Lands and Resources Office. And yeah, I'm just going to kind of, overall it's pretty straightforward, but I'm going to kind of get into more of the details of what this proposed agreement is all about. So basically what's happening is a developer by the name of Joe Valea, whose company is called Turcotte Communities, is trying to build 4 high-rise condo buildings along the Don River. And basically, if you look on the screen there, you can see like kind of 4 silhouette buildings up there. So the total acreage of the property is about 50 acres, and he's going to be developing 5% of that, and he's going to be donating the rest of the land back to the city, in which it's going to get environmentally restored. And so what we get out of this deal is we would get either a cultural center, which Phil was saying we could use to educate, office space, lots of things, or we could receive a one-time payment of $1 million. And what Six Nations has to do is we would have to support the development at the Ontario Land Tribunal hearing. So the site today, currently it's on the Fleming Don Golf Course, which is a 9-hole golf course, pretty old place. Environmentally, there's not too much going on right now. It's basically just manicured grass with very little biodiversity throughout the site at all. And it's been kind of just degrading over time. And as you can see from those pictures, it's definitely not the greatest thing at the moment. And so here's some more details of the actual proposed development. So it's going to have about 130,000 square meters of like gross floor area. The buildings are all going to be a little bit different, but anywhere between 42 and 56 stories, which is going to bring around 2,000 units. The exact numbers haven't been defined yet. And there's just some other stats there about how much vehicle parking and bicycle parking that there is. But yeah, you can see on the screen again, there's not kind of another rendering of what it could potentially look like. Also, Brian Porter from Tuo Architect, he was contacted early in the process, and I know that he has had some influence on some of the designs that have been incorporated throughout the buildings might look like. So for the cultural center, as you can see on the screen there, you can see at the top, there's the 4 buildings, and the cultural center will be a level. You'll be able to see the sunrise and sunset, or not the sunset, but the sunrise. So it's minimum 3,500 feet. It's going to have a full kitchen, office spaces, and like Phil was mentioning, it's going to be at no expense to Six Nations. So, after 3 years, if we do this and we figure out that it's not exactly feasible and we just can't do it, we could always sell the unit for market price. It's kind of up to us what we want to do with it and how we want to run it. And then I'm going to call Lauren up here. She's going to talk about some of the environmental restoration that's going to be happening on the site. It's pretty exciting. You can flip it. I have the map on the next one. Oh, gotta switch it.
One second. Oh, wonderful, my map's up. Okay, hi everybody. My name is Lauren Jones. I am the Wildlife and Stewardship Manager. I also am a member of the CAP team. I was the one that actually reviewed and am summarizing the environmental documents for this project for you today. So I kind of organized my notes based on the report that I was reading. So fair warning, if something does not make sense, please do not hesitate to come up and talk to me or ask me a question. So first up is the arborist report. As the name entails, this is all about the trees that will be removed. This often entails a health assessment of some sort, as well as measurement at, it's called diameter at breast height, so this height, how big the tree is. So in total, 130 trees will unfortunately have to be removed as a result of the building itself. And for your knowledge, the top little orange part there, that is the footprint of the building itself, whereas what is encapsulated in red is the total study area, or the total project area. So 130 trees will have to be removed. The replanting policy they are following is that of City of Toronto, which is a sliding scale. So it is based on that diameter at breast height, and that determines how many trees are planted in response to the tree that is removed. So in total, as a part of just this project, just the building of the building, 316 trees will be planted, and they will be planted on site. Of those trees, the majority of those being removed are Norway maple, which is an invasive species, sugar maple, eastern white cedar, and they are all located in that orange development area, 3 of which are being removed due to safety reasons. Now, just as Dalen kind of alluded to, this whole other area, the rest of the red area, will be returned to City of Toronto and will be used for parkland as well as for inclusion into the Don River Restoration Initiative and the Don River Valley lands. So that 316 trees will be planted within that area and will be prioritized along the Don River itself to help create a riparian buffer. So this is actually really, really good for any aquatic little critters that are in there. Having a riparian buffer helps to prevent sediment from entering the river, prevent pollutants, just all around kind of a good idea. And that will all be done with this project. However, I do really want to remind you and really make it clear that additional consultation around the restoration of the rest of the area is still to come, and we will be included in that. Okay, so in total, that riparian area will total about 6.5 hectares. Plant species chosen are that for native site-appropriate species, which is exactly what we push for, and is very much aimed at increasing species diversity in total. In addition, they will be adding some brush piles, deadfall, little other habitats for critters. Okay, next report is an ESA report. So the ESA report is very much based on historical and potential sources of contamination. It's very much based on soil and water quality. So as you can imagine, within City of Toronto, there's definitely some potential sources of contamination. This includes gasoline, oil, other fuels, old waste, chemicals, including PCBs. There's railway tracks to the east, but otherwise it's surrounded by residential. Since it was a golf course and has been since 1969, there is also some evidence of pesticide use. All of this has resulted in the recommendation for an ESA Phase 2 to take place, which is where they actually test the presence of those contaminations within the soil and the water. We unfortunately have not received the results of that testing yet. Okay, on to the hydrological report. So just to give you some numbers, the entire site, so the entire red area there, totals 16.94 hectares. The area that is being developed, so the orange area where the buildings are going, is 0.76 hectares, which leaves approximately 16 hectares that will be returned to nature. When they are building, the building is, I wish I put a picture of this now, it is on a hill. So when they are building the building, they are basically taking the soil up from the top of that hill, leveling out, putting it at the bottom. That's called a cut and fill technique. Because they are creating an underground parking lot as well as some stormwater management facilities, there will be some dewatering required, which means that they have to unfortunately remove the water and offshoot it into the city municipality greywater system. They are using low-impact development techniques that includes bioswales, permeable pavers, green roofs, per City of Toronto policy. And the entire site is located outside of the floodplain, so there's no permanent effects intended or likely as a result of building this infrastructure. Okay, and now on to my favorite part. Next report is natural heritage document. So this is the report where they actually look at the natural environment, and we get to see what species are currently using this site. First and foremost, we have birds. Now, I do want to make it clear that this is not a comprehensive list of anything. I just tried to pick out the ones that I think that you guys would find the most interesting. Again, if you have any additional questions or want more clarification, please let me know. So on breeding bird surveys according to protocol, they did find an eastern wood pewee, a nesting site for Kupus hawk, a red-tailed hawk, and barn swallows were all foraging. For eastern wood pewee, it is identified as a special concern species. So just kind of in that southern woodlot there. You'll notice it is very far away from where they are developing, so no impacts are anticipated. Oops. For amphibians, they did not hear any amphibians calling. However, they did see one American toad. For bats, they did do bat acoustic monitoring, which is what we pushed for. That's very good. And they observed big brown hoary and silver-haired bat. Hoary and silver-haired bat are both federally listed as being endangered. Again, in that same area, they were noted in that same area as the eastern wood pewee, so again, we're not anticipating very many changes there. For mammals, there isn't very many protocols that actually assess to actually determine like relative abundance or determine how the species is using an area. So unfortunately, we just have like whether or not they're present. But some of the signs include muskrat, white-tailed deer, red fox, coyote, and eastern cottontail. Because there's no investigations available to tell us how they're using this area, we're kind of just making educated guesses here, which means that since it is a golf course, historically, they tend to use more than that. For plants, they did do ecological land classification. They did not plants. There is, however, deciduous forest, again, mostly that southern bit there, which includes, ashes. One thing to note here is that about 49% of the plant species that they observed are invasive species. So these would be species that were introduced with colonists coming over, mostly. That included garlic mustard, dog strangling vine, buckthorn, and Dame's rocket. And so this would be a very major talking point to have these farther. Aquatic investigations did say that they had limited riparian habitat, which is not surprising. The only species that they could really find, oh my God. I don't like hearing my voice that loud, oh my God. So most of the fish species detected were those pollution-tolerant generalist type species, think white suckers, daces, things like that. However, it should be noted that there is historical evidence of much larger sportfish using this area to spawn, which explains why this area is of such interest to restore, because eventually, maybe, with a whole lot of work, we could potentially restore it to a point where those sport fishes could come back. One thing to note is, even though the riparian area kind of sucks, there's nothing there, there actually is, within the river, enough structures that would and could potentially foster that kind of spawning habit. Okay. Just some other notes. The Don River in general is denoted as being a significant valley land according to the MNRF guidelines. This is due because it is a very large river with a very large catchment area. Additionally, the woodlands, again, right where those eastern wood pewees are also identified as significant woodland because of their proximity to that valley land. Now, I tell you this because this means that because they have this like extra designation, then future development of this area is very, very unlikely. Don River is also indicated as being a migratory bird stopover, and yeah, that is the gist of it. Again, just really want to hit it home here that more consultation is forthcoming. We do have the opportunity to consult on those restoration plans. So, I mean, really, if you want to put on your sheets of any of your particular concerns, that would actually really help us out too. So yeah, I think I'm done. Is there anybody else?
So first off, I'd like to encourage all of you to fill in the surveys on the tables. If for some reason you don't have one, please see me or someone else sitting at that table to my right. Please, if at all possible, return them to us this evening to our Assistant Director, Taylor Hill. Can you wave, Taylor? And she'll give out gift cards for each survey she receives. If you want to think on it a bit, don't want to submit it tonight, you can always do so at the Lands and Resources office. All right, just a moment, please. We were about to open this to Q&A, and someone has a question. We will certainly start there. As you saw us at the beginning, fiddling around with the sound system, and I apologize, it's a bit antiquated, which means we have a wire attached. So just please be aware of that at all times as a potential tripping hazard. We'll ensure everyone has a chance to make a comment, make a question. We will prioritize people who haven't spoken yet, but you're certainly welcome to have a follow-up question if need be. And as we go through, please raise your hand, and we'll get to you. Yep. I'm just trying to get all this loose cord together so I can move off stage. Just a moment, please. All right. Okay, I won't do that again. So I'm going to hear the question. We'll try to repeat it on the mic. I've been told it's best for me to write down your question and try to do it.
I think everybody needs to hear it.
Well, you're certainly, would you be willing to go to the front?
I can talk loudly.
Okay, great.
And I'm thinking about it, says it's going to have 2 parking spots. And it says there's an opportunity for Six Nations to have a cultural information center to promote Six Nations tourism. How many people are actually going to be around that area to actually engage in anything that might be of interest to Six Nations?
So I'm just going to hold this in front of you just so the people online can hear, if that's all right. Or yeah.
Already asked
Great.
the question. Anyway, that's one of my concerns, and hopefully you can address that. I don't know if you've done a study about all of that. I mean, like, 2 parking spots? I mean, that floored me right there. And the other thing, and this is just another comment, about archaeology. Exactly what is a level 2? I mean, or what does it say?
Phase 2.
A phase stage 2 pit. Because we were developing a park here in Brantford, and we were required to go further than that. And I don't understand why that's only a 2-stage test pit. Exactly what is that? Let's hear.
Oh, thanks. Sorry? Put it on who? Oh, okay. He wants me to put this on one of you who's talking.
For the parking spots, the 2 parking spots would be just for the employees. There's also the visitor and the overflow parking that can be used on a daily basis, but it would just be 2 parking spaces allocated every day for employees or whoever's going to be using the cultural center on a daily basis, plus the visitor parking. Can't hear me? All right.
Are you able to hear me? Just to relay what Galen was just saying, he was saying that the 2 parking spots would be just for potential employees of the cultural center, visitors, people attending meetings. There'd be larger general visitor parking for those. And then the other question had to do with archaeology. I don't have the expertise to answer that question. I will submit, because you were mentioning, there was a project that, you had an interest in Brantford, and, there was a stage 3. And why isn't there a stage 3 here?
I'll try to yell. So there was no archaeology found, so they do not have to progress on to the next stage. So if they would have found any sort of artifacts, they would have progressed on to stage 3. And then if they would have found more, then they progress on to stage 4, the last stage. But so stage 1 is the desktop, stage 2 is the test pits, and during the test pits, there is no archaeology potential found. As such, they did not need to move on to stage 3 because there's nothing found at stage 2. That was for the orange development area. They did not do the whole area, as it's not for development. It's supposed to be for restoration. And as such, the preference is to leave archaeology in situ for the rest of it. But if there was to be development, they would have to do further archaeology on the remaining red section.
All right, let me just try to get this thing for the people listening on the stream. Thank you. I don't like the stream.
Okay. In the park that we're developing, we were told, like a stage 2, of course, you may not find something. And as you're saying here, in stage 2, you didn't find anything. But if you went down deeper, like a stage 3, maybe you would find. So I'm saying that it's not enough. That's my comment. It's not enough to do only a stage 2. Because in the park, we didn't find anything either on a stage 2. And now we're having issues because they dug deeper and there are artifacts.
If you don't mind holding that.
What is this?
It's so people on the stream can be able to hear you better.
I have a few questions, I guess. One of the questions is why is Toronto not approving it? Is that wasn't in your presentation? Why Toronto didn't approve it? Why isn't Toronto approving this development? It's one of the concerns of mine. The other one is we had somebody do the Thanksgiving address, and then when you turn around and you say it's okay to remove 130 trees. How is that justifiable on removing trees where there's habitats when we're supposed to be living together with the animals, trees, livelihood, everything? Like, how does that justify saying that it's okay to remove 130 trees? We have so much troubles going on with this green belt, removing trees and the species and stuff like that. So I don't and the other thing is you got 2 sessions. That's hardly enough time for us to even absorb what is going on. And how is a culture center? I get the culture center putting in there in Toronto, educating us, but what happens to us here on Six Nations? We always seem like we always get the end of the stick, not a good result. I know, like, my daughter lives on McClung Road in Caledonia, and we have all these foreigners, and I'm not prejudiced or anything, but we have all these foreigners coming in, and we're accommodating them. Right now, they're in the middle of building a great big school for all these new people coming in. Like, when I look around and say, okay, well, where's our negotiating tool? What do we get here at Six Nations? How do we benefit? How do we benefit from everybody else developing? And why does this go back to Toronto? So we're going to sit here and say, this partial land's going back to Toronto when we're busy over here arguing in court saying, this is our land? That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense because we're supposed to be in this court case against Canada saying that you defrauded us on our land, but we're going to turn around and say, oh, well, you can just give that land back to Toronto. Okay, yeah.
All right, I will try to answer some of those. Please assist, team, if you see me floundering. The first question is, why didn't Toronto approve it? There's a few reasons. One was zoning. Another one was concerned about where it's being built, as was described. So again, it's that orange area at the top, and it's on a slope. So there were erosion concerns. Also, what we understand in many ways as being the real reason is that there are a number of users of that golf course that have some influence with the city. They organized to try to prevent their golf course from being developed. So we believe those are the three primary reasons. The second one, as mentioned, there's we just heard the Thanksgiving address, and this project, would involve the removal of 130 trees.
So first off, I do really want to say that, like, I totally get the frustration about removing the trees. Can everybody hear me? Sorry, I just realized that. I do really understand this frustration with removing trees. Believe me, it is something that I deal with a lot in this job. It's not something that we like whatsoever. In this scenario, I do believe that the ends justifies the means, because currently it is a golf course. It is not very environmentally useful in comparison to what it could be with especially that Don River restoration aspect. Now, maybe that doesn't make it okay in your eyes. I totally get it. But that was our rationale. In addition to that, they are removing primarily an invasive species. So when an invasive species comes in, it actually prevents, in some cases, the survivability of native species that are much more useful to the local flora and fauna. In some cases, like buckthorn, it can completely choke it out. So in this case, they are removing primarily Norway maples, which are an invasive species. It is a species taken and over here from, you guessed it, Norway. And so removal of that species is often considered a beneficial action by a lot of people. But yes, I totally get the frustration. Does that help at all?
I can give you more on the golf course. If you think about a golf courses are actually detrimental to the environment. From the grass getting cut every day, that's greenhouse gases is being put into the air every single day. The fertilizer that's used to keep the grass growing, keep the grass healthy, make it green, those are bad for the environment. Not to mention all of the water that's being pumped out of the Don River to go through the irrigation systems to wash this, to water the course, to keep the grass growing. That all has environmental impacts. And yes, right off the bat, if you were to take down 130 trees, it's going to be worse than it is now. But in the future, with this whole area not renaturalizing, it's going to be better than it is today. And to talk about, I guess, the court case a little bit, our court case isn't about getting the land back, and it's specifically to deal with the Haldeman Tract, not a Nanfan treaty. But in terms of the benefit that this would bring Six Nations, like a lot of the times when people are developing just in anywhere, like you said, even in Caledonia there in McClung, in Toronto, a lot of people are newcomers to Canada, and a lot of people don't have a lot of education on Indigenous history. They're coming from a foreign country. They never had to learn this stuff. So when they come to develop something, they don't have that knowledge of that Indigenous people were here first. So they don't really realize that you have to consult with them. And then the municipalities don't force them to consult with First Nations, because at the end of the day, if the municipality gets all their money for servicing and whatnot, they don't really care whether they consult with a First Nation or not. The municipality just wants you to build stuff so they make more money off servicing. So really a lot of the reason why Six Nations and a lot of First Nations don't get consulted is just because of the lack of education that people have. So if we're able to have this educational center off-res in Toronto, a place that's populated full of lots of people, it's a very good way that we can educate the greater public about Six Nations. But there's no guarantee, no. And right, and then that's why we have the option. If we want to try it. That's the goal. Is we want to try it, have this cultural center, try to educate as many people as we can, and then, you know what? If quite frankly we just figure out we can't, it's not feasible for us to run it, then we have the option to be able to sell it and put that money towards the community for something else.
Sure, just give me 1 second. And as far as which I think Dalen's partly addressed is what about something here? They're building stuff like crazy, other places, but there's certainly not similar construction here. In that case, I would urge you to then on your comments, say that you would prefer that instead of maintaining the cultural center after the 3 years, you would prefer that council decide to sell the property and invest it in housing or whatever area you think it should be in. I'll let you know in the coming months. We will have a community engagement about a project that will bring a lot of housing units here to Six Nations.
One thing though, like in Niagara Falls, they built a turtle building, right? And that was designed for the same thing, and that went down. So there's no guarantee that just because it's in Toronto, in the middle of a fast-paced city, does not mean that it's going to be utilized. Right. So we have a tourism place here. We have you have social media here. So what I'm saying is like I still don't see how we benefit directly here on Six Nations. I don't see it. You can say whatever you want, and you can say talk about the golf course and stuff like that. Yeah, but by the end of the day, how do we directly benefit?
Yeah, so that's what I say. You should definitely make that clear in your comments and potentially suggest that it be sold at the first available opportunity to provide resources here. I'm just going to jump. Sorry, I saw you and then you, sir. If you don't mind handing this silly looking thing.
Okay. I don't want to be on camera.
It's for voice. There's a request not to be on camera.
I don't want to be on camera.
So if we could turn that away.
Turn that.
So she's not on camera?
Okay, so my question is, under stage 2, archaeological digging, it's 30 to 40 centimeters, which is 12 to 14 inches in depth. 60 to 70 centimeters will locate a grave shaft. Supposed, and I want to hear your next step, when you put in the underground parking lot, you do go the 60 to 70 centimeter depth, but not under an archaeological dig. It's more or less construction. Now, the Provincial Cemeteries Act states, should an Indigenous gravesite be located, it's null and void. You totally disregard it. So our ancestors, what's your next step? Should you locate a gravesite of Indigenous people, our people, any people? What's your next step when you put in your underground parking lot? Considering the Provincial Cemeteries Act that you are to abide by. And you're using Haudenosaunee land. So what's your next step? Thank you. Yeah.
I will try to answer that. Our archaeology supervisor could not make it tonight. Sorry, if I go in the middle, is that better? Our archaeology supervisor couldn't make it tonight, so the standards and guidelines are the same for any archaeology company. So it was PCL Parcelos Parcel Carter Limited who did the archaeology, so they followed the guidelines that are on Ontario. So and then the ministry cleared it after they submitted their reports. But if there is any burial, as we've seen, our archaeology supervisor is notified by the burial registrar, and construction will halt while they work out a plan for what happens with the burial. Our preference is in situ. That's not always often feasible, and sometimes not wanted, especially if it's in a well-traveled area, such as like roadways. And not, then a plan will be put in place. Our archaeology supervisor is actively on many this year. There is a burial plot on Painter Road where ancestors from museums and any ones that aren't able to be put in situ are able to go. It is about 5 acres, so when they will do the construction, if there are any bones or artifacts we found, those will be registered. We also often have construction monitors on site. So they are the archaeology monitors, but during construction, and they will be they're usually there to monitor in case anything is found afterwards, because there is a chance. But per the original archaeology that was done by an archaeology company that is registered with Ontario. They followed the standards and guidelines that are in place, and then it was cleared by the Ministry of Multiculturalism and MCM. They changed their name. It used to be tourism, but multiculturalism. And they sent out a clearance letter. I believe the handout says 2022 or 2023.
Oh, just hold it. And don't worry about it.
Okay, everybody done? Everybody done? The question I want to ask is, or make a statement first. By the looks of things, everything around this plot of land is already overdeveloped. Why are you trying to engage us now? The horse has already left the barn. Why close the goddamn door?
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. There is a lot developed. Part of it is municipalities are supposed to consult, engage First Nations, and they do not. As you say, in the larger ecological integrity, the horse maybe has left the barn. But as Lauren and Dalen were saying, we believe there can be strong benefit by turning that golf course, into a naturalized area. Unfortunately, especially with the cities like Toronto, we got to do the best of what we can with what's been left. Just don't want to make sure there's no else. All right.
Why does it seem like we're always accommodating somebody else? Are we not supposed to be consulted and accommodated? Why is it we are always accommodating somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, big part. I mean, as you know, the judicial system, the legislature, they've long worked, directly in contrast, to First Nation interests. It's difficult. There's thousands of development projects, happening every year in the Nanfan area. And there's a few problems with responding to that. One is the government doesn't like to recognize Nanfan, right? They claim, it's not a treaty. They won't enter into discussions. As we do have some lawsuits, especially the big litigation, over the Haldeman Tract. There's, unfortunately, countless violations of First Nation rights, every year, but we don't have the capacity to go after all these projects. Unfortunately, Toronto has not been, consulting you, on land uses at all. There's a lot of things that have to change, on the political level, on the legal level. At the moment, we do what we can. To try to at least force some environmental improvements, sometimes, modest, right? It might be some back boxes, some native species. Other times, increasing at least the buffer area, between a development, and a forest. The situation is not presently good. You hear a lot of flowery rhetoric. from some. But at the end of the day, where it often really matters, that's, respecting, your traditional and treaty rights. There's a lot to be desired.
So when you talk about treaty rights and you talk about all this stuff that went on with our past, where's the Confederacy in all this? Because you're talking about Nanfan Treaty, right? So when I look at a treaty, I look at the source. Where was that? Where did that treaty come from? Right in the beginning of time. We're talking about pre-dating Canada. So when you're talking about the Nanfan Treaty and having to give up, because that's what it seems like we always have to do, is give up something, and pretend it's okay. Because this is already in the works. This is all about consultation, consulting Six Nations. This is going forward with or without us. So, is this what this part of this is? Is the consultation, accommodation? Because to me, this is only opening the door. Where is the rest of the discussion going to happen? Where is the rest of the community? Where is the Confederacy? Where's the clan mothers? Like, that's what's wrong here. We're always divided. We're always divided.
Yeah, I'll just briefly say I have no knowledge as far as potential involvement in this or other projects with the Confederacy. They may or may not have an interest or talks with this development. I don't know. Like most projects in Toronto, there has not been meaningful consultation, for this or others. Again, they ran them through. As I said, the best we can do aside from legal action is to get those environmental benefits, and I have a bit in this case, a bit of placemaking, so people both in the park, in the building, know that it's Haudenosaunee land, and ideally some money to bring back here.
I guess one of the issues here is
Awesome.
whatever this is doing, I don't know. But anyways, I've been at this for 50 years and trying to get the Confederacy and the elective to work together for the betterment of the people. That's where we should be focusing. Instead, people use this as dividing this and that. It's not the Confederacy's. It's not the elective, and I think this is what came up. It's yours. Your decision, people. I know you can ally with who you want to ally with or support who you want to support, but this is your decision. It's not up to a clan mother. It's not up to a councillor. This is for your input. Now, here's an opportunity, as I said, that we can at least start promoting Six Nations in Toronto, because Toronto right now, who we face, they only sit there and talk about New Credit's claim to all of this when yet they've surrendered their lands. This is an education opportunity for us and to promote Six Nations. Is it the be-all and end-all? No. It's a start to start getting our foot in the door on these issues. And when they get educated, more people will be talking with us. But, you can always say no to this, and it's going to go on anyways. That's the reality. Development's going to go on, and we'll be excluded from any opportunities for accommodations, especially in the Nanfam areas, because they'll say, well, New Credit says, yeah, go ahead. But we do have interest in all of these areas. Southern Ontario, you have interest. It's not the Confederacy have interest. It's not the elective system has interest. Not the political bodies. It's you guys have the interest. So that's where you should focus on what your attention are. If it's a matter of, oh, where's the Confederacy? I've been trying personally to work with them, and I have worked with them. Through all of these years trying to work with them. We haven't got, where were you saying, we haven't got 2 condos sitting in Toronto? Or is it only the HDI and Confederacy can have those? This is to bring benefits to everybody. Who, if we can do and promote Six Nations overall, that's what this is about. As far as, the environmental, there's an opportunity. It's going to be under the Toronto, what's our environmentalists over there. We'll bring in Guyana, say, we'll negotiate with them to make that a better place instead of a golf course. Because Dylan pointed out the hazards of a golf course. So this is your opportunity, If you want to sit back and just criticize it being an elected initiative and that's why you oppose it, go ahead and do it. What else can I say?
Their Indigenous liaison officer that monitors a lot of the cultural events is a Métis. So just keep that in mind as well, that the Métis have now flooded our traditional territory. So you have to also keep that in mind, is that, if we don't get involved, they're there. They're there for their jobs, that could come to us. They're there for their cultural centers that could come to us. And that's one thing that's another battle, okay? We don't have to battle amongst ourselves. We've got other forces. We've got other forces that we have to battle. So that's one of the things that we should always keep in mind in this expansive area of development. They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. But we have to get involved. We have to get our voice there. And we have to give them our cultural voice too, as well. So that's just my 2 cents. So just keep that in mind.
Is that a hand?
Yes, I want to say something. Good evening, and good evening. It's as best I can do. It's my first time hearing this and seeing your material, but you know what? I think Lands and Resources has to seriously take on that challenge of discussing homelessness with Toronto and this Don Valley, because there are already people there camped out, and right now, I don't know whether Toronto's one of them, but the municipalities are looking to try and make law, if you can believe, to try and get people out of the encampments that they're enclosing in on all over Ontario. So truly, I don't see any discussion yet, even from Six Nations, and doing some dialogue off reserve about homelessness. But truly, that needs to be first and foremost in discussions, I think, now, when people start talking about what we're going to do with the development, because you've got a big problem right now. There's not enough housing for people to live. That's why they're camped out. I mean, I'm not sided one way or the other. I understand many situations that people get into, but for cat's sake, don't get yourselves into trying to develop land, and because it already says it's slated to go back to Toronto. There's no guarantee that Toronto can handle the homelessness situation before you even begin to develop there. And that is my point that I want to just put on the floor for you. Thank you.
And please correct me, just for those that weren't able to hear. She was just mentioning that she hasn't heard of Lands and Resources addressing that homelessness issue outside the community, particularly in Toronto. She generally says there hasn't been much discussion at all in Six Nations about homelessness in Toronto and other areas. Basically the gist is there's surely a crisis, and we need to be discussing this more. You can't ignore it. I would say, you're absolutely right. And this will not contribute substantially to it, but just so people are aware, because of City of Toronto guidelines, 5% of the units being built there will be affordable. Now, I do not know in what sense affordable, right? You'll have people, well, they'll build a studio apartment, so it's cheaper than average, therefore it's affordable. I will dive in to see if it's, at least what might be called deeper affordability, right? Something that's, not just, 10% cheaper than an impossible price. So I will try to get details on that. And I think that was a good message because there are a few councillors, in attendance here, and hopefully they'll consider what you're saying about the need to really turn our minds to the crisis. And certainly I'll say, we in Lands and Resources, it's an issue we haven't spent that much time discussing, and maybe we should.
Okay. I'm just curious, what does support mean? They're asking for support. What do they mean by support? Yeah. Is it a letter? Do you have to go to the hearing, the tribunal, and speak on behalf of them? And if we support them, how many other people are trying to develop this land? What if somebody's got a better deal, and we're supporting these guys? You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of factors into what support is.
Yeah, so I'd say as far as what support are they asking for? So they would want a representative, they would want a representative of elected council to attend the land tribunal hearings. I assume, there might also be a possibility of the letter, but the larger commitment is to attend those hearings and be willing to speak in favor. As for the prospects, maybe they would be denied, and there could be a company that would come up that maybe there could be better terms than we have there. It's just, unfortunately, that's not the case. There's a lot of developments that go to the Ontario Lands Tribunal that I would like to be axed. But unfortunately, the way it's been designed over the long term and made worse under the present Ford government is the Land Tribunal, they basically green light everything. There was recently a study that showed that 97% of all cases before them gets the green light. In some ways it's basically an escape mechanism, if a municipality opposes a project to ensure that developers will still largely be able to get their way in the end. Yeah.
Okay, and so then I guess I'm just wondering, whose idea was the 3 years for the cultural center? Why can't we have it for longer, forever? How much is one condo gonna, how much does it cost to buy a condo? They're gonna make, and there's 2,000 units, and they're gonna make that money forever, but they only want us to let it have a building for 3 years? That seems cheap.
Yeah, just to clarify, the building the unit, it would be Six Nations forever, or for however long as Six Nations elected council, decides to keep it. So that's baked in. The 3 years is just that they'd be willing, that they're on the hook to pay a cost associated for it, right? So, they guarantee that, taxes are paid, that sort of thing. Now, it could potentially be longer than 3 years. It's just the 3 years that's baked in. And we'll also see what the Lands Tribunal decides. It would certainly be nice if they were suggested that the cultural center have more longer term funding from, if not the developer, the municipality.
Yeah. So do you know how much a unit is? How much is one unit?
Yeah. So for this unit, the cultural center unit. No.
Condo. How much are they selling these condos to people for?
Well, they don't have the prices yet, but the appraiser, our lawyer, talked to this about, believes the cultural center unit will be worth $2.5 million.
Okay. So that's comparable to actually living in the condo? This is what I'm saying.
Well, I'm just extrapolating because they.
Don't work out, and they're worth, like ponying up $1 million, but one unit is over double that cost. It seems cheap to me.
It's because it's a particularly large unit.
You times that by 2,000 units at least.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a good deal. Sorry.
All right.
I think we could get more. Right?
You know, at the end of the day, we literally can't. It's unfortunately a take it or leave it, you know, proposition. You know, as I say, best case scenario, there'll be external funding that it can be a cultural center long term. You know, if not, you know, we look at the $2.5 million. Yeah, I mean, more would be better, but this is all we got, and it's either yes or no. Sorry?
We asked them for
And?
this and that.
Combine the options. We get both the cultural space and a monetary.
Okay. So the suggestion is it would be better to have an agreement that would include both the money, you know, and the cultural center long term, instead of either or. I'd absolutely agree with you. You know, unfortunately in this situation, you know, we didn't have enough leverage to make something like that happen. So it is just the status quo per the agreement as far as either the center or the money. We are definitely not in a position to be able to get both. If there's no other questions, please come over here and fill up your plates. Also, be sure to stick around and you know, take some carryouts with you. You know, I think we got more food than people. All right. But, you know, thank you again, you know, for taking the time out in your evening to come here. Again, I'll just flag, you know, Taylor sitting at the table down there. If you could bring the surveys to her in exchange for a gift card, that would be much appreciated. After every one of these, you know, Taylor, you know, painstakingly, you know, transfers literally every comment that are in your surveys and compiles them for council. So please, you know, whether you like it, you don't like it, please make your voice heard. Thank you.